"It is time," said Arioch, "to seek the black swords yourself, Elric, lest Yirkun reach them first. If he possesses those swords before you find them, it will mean the end of you, of Cimmeril, of the Young Kingdoms, and quite possibly the destruction of MELNIBONE too. I have often been warned of the dangers of seeking those swords," Elric said musingly, "and the worst dangers of owning them. I think I must consider another plan, my lord Arioch." "There is no other plan. Yirkun desires the swords if you do not. With Mournblade in one hand and Stormbringer in the other, he will be invincible." Arioch paused. "You must do as I say. It is to your advantage." "And to yours, Lord Arioch?" "Aye, to mine. I am not entirely selfless." "I like it not," said Elric. "To stop Yirkun is one thing. To assume his ambition and take the swords myself, that is another thing. It is your destiny." "Can I not change my destiny?" Arioch shook his head. "No more than can I." Elric stroked sleeping Cimmeril's hair. "I love her. She is all that I desire. And you shall not wake her if Yirkun finds the blades before you do." "And how shall I find these blades?" "Enter the Shade Gate. Then you must seek the tunnel under the marsh, which leads to the pulsing cavern. In that chamber the rune swords are kept. They have been kept there ever since your ancestors relinquished them." "Why were they relinquished?" "Your ancestors lacked courage." "Courage to face what?" "Themselves."
Hail and well met, fellow travelers, eternal champions and eternal companions alike. I'm Tim from Secret Fire Books, and today I'll be talking about Elric of MELNIBONE, the first book of the Elric saga by Michael Moorcock. This is the first in a series of videos that I'll be doing as part of a read-along event that I started alongside two other channels, Liminal Spaces and News from the Gelding. We will all be reading and reviewing one book from the Elric saga a month for the rest of the year. Now, Chris from Liminal Spaces uploaded his review of Elric of MELNIBONE a few days ago, and Jim from News from the Gelding will be posting his video tomorrow, I believe. So I will link both of those channels in the description below. If you're not already subscribed to both of them, you should be. Those guys make some awesome videos. But that's enough of the preamble. Let's get into it. This is Book 1 of the Elric saga. Elric, son of Sadric, is the 428th Emperor of MELNIBONE, a kingdom that was once the center of a world-conquering empire, now reduced to a single insular island nation. The MELNIBONEans are a long-lived, inhuman race, descendants of an ancient cult that worship the demonic beings known as the Lords of Chaos. No, not those guys. As such, they are a decadent, hedonistic people. Their culture possesses but one core tenet, which is, in an unsettling parallel to the real-world Church of Satan, the pursuit of one's own gratification. To the MELNIBONEans, if it feels good, then it is good, and anyone or anything that should stand in the way of that self-indulgence should be eliminated. They are, to put it simply, outside the realm of traditional human morality. However, one of their race dares to aspire to a higher, more ethical calling. Elric, the Dragon Isle's sickly albino ruler, has read the many scrolls and tomes of his late father's library. He has discovered the things that ordinary men call morality and philosophy, and unlike old Sadric, who saw those collected writings as mere amusements, Elric desires to adopt those lofty ideals, believing that they will bring enlightenment to himself and to his people. But these idealistic musings have put him at odds with his immoral subjects, especially his traitorous cousin, Prince Yirkun. And when Yirkun does the unthinkable, when he betrays his emperor and kidnaps his beloved fiancée Cimmeril, Elric is thrust into a dire situation. In order to preserve his honor, save the woman he loves, and take revenge on the man who betrayed him, Elric of MELNIBONE must turn to the dark powers that long ago brought ruin upon his ancestors. He must seek the help of MELNIBONE's patron deity, Arioch, the Lord of Chaos. This first entry in the Elric saga gives us a detailed introduction of not just our main character, but to the people of MELNIBONE and the world in which they live. After their empire crumbled, the MELNIBONEans became an isolated people, while countless smaller nations, known collectively as the Young Kingdoms, rose up from the ashes of their conquest. The world in which we see Elric living is one that is in the middle of a dramatic shift. The old world order, MELNIBONE, is dying, and the burgeoning barbarian nations outside their territory are coming into their own. Within this greater transition, we also see Elric himself embark on a journey that will change him forever. I should mention that, apart from being an exciting sword and sorcery adventure, this book, and by extension the rest of the series, is in fact a deep philosophical character study. Now don't let that turn you away just yet. There is plenty of action, swashbuckling, and monster slaying to be had, but all of that is really a vessel in which Moorcock delivers a much more substantial narrative, and he does so without seeming overly pretentious or navel-gazy. Elric, from the outset, is an anomaly. Not only is he an albino whose pale, ghostly appearance is said to be unsettling to those around him, he also seems to possess something that other MELNIBONEans lack, a conscience. That said, it's a conscience that was acquired by delving into old books from his father's library, as opposed to a conscience he was actually born with. Elric is still very much a MELNIBONEan, and it comes across that he doesn't fully understand the human morality and ethics he tries to practice. For example, Elric knows that offering mercy to an enemy or showing compassion to those less fortunate than himself is morally right, but he doesn't fully grasp when practicing those ideals is appropriate. Seeing how an inhuman character tries to implement basic humanity into his life is inherently an interesting idea for a story, but Moorcock does way more than just that. Elric is also a tragic hero, and I'm not spoiling anything by saying that either. Moorcock pounds into his reader's mind over and over again throughout the novel, and all throughout the rest of the series, that the Elric saga is a tragedy, in a classical sense. The story will not end well for our hero. The fun of the series, therefore, is seeing just how spectacularly and poetically ironic his fall will be. As a consequence, this book is full of ominous foreshadowing. There are constant allusions to a certain, yet far-off doom in store for Elric, and as we learn more about him, about his hopes and dreams, his victories, his shortcomings, his addictions to the alchemical potions that keep his frail body alive, and his abiding love for a certain cousin of his, Alabama! The grim foreboding of this novel becomes even more palpable. As for the writing, Moorcock's prose style is simple and straightforward. At the end of the day, this is a heroic adventure novel. Doom and gloom aside, the story needs to be accessible and readable. Moorcock pulls this off almost flawlessly. For a book that handles such weighty existential matters, the page count of Elric of MELNIBONE flies by without the reader actually noticing. This was my second reading of the book, and as I was the first time, I was blown away at how much Moorcock fits into such a small space. The book itself can be read within a single evening, but it feels like so much more. That, I think, is the mark of truly good fantasy storytelling. It's something that the likes of Conan and the Lankmar stories always were capable of as well. If there are any complaints to be had, it's that the narrative can feel a little jumpy at times. A certain writing tip that I've heard repeated countless times is that a story should be a string of events that occur as direct responses to the previous events. Something should always happen because of something else. In this novel, however, it feels like many things are simply happening regardless of previous events. It's the "and then" syndrome. And then Elric and his friends summoned a magic boat. And then they met a big monster that came out of the ground. And then they had a big fight. And then something happened with a magic mirror. That said, I give most of this a pass, as the vignettes throughout are just so weird and creative. Disjointed though they may be, no one writes a psychedelic, dreamlike fantasy scene quite like Michael Moorcock. I would highly recommend this book to anyone who is a fan of the fantasy genre, not just to those who enjoy the trimmings and trappings of old school sword and sorcery, but also to those who are looking for a book that shakes up the traditional fantasy formula. I feel like this book does a good job of catering to both of those tastes. But that's all just my opinion. Let me know in the comments, guys. Have you read Elric of MELNIBONE? What did you think of it? Regardless, I hope you'll join me for my next Elric review, and I hope you'll check out my friends' reviews for the series as well. Again, their links are in the description below. Until next time, as always, farewell, keep reading, and remember, the gods serve destiny also.
Alabama!